Korea's show of force with a missile launch fell flat when the missile blew up just a few minutes into flight. After the launch, President Trump sending out a tweet in response saying, quote, North Korea disrespected the wishes of China and its highly respected president when it launched, though it unsuccessfully, a bad missile today. Bad. Here with me now, Jacqueline Klimas. She's a defense reporter with Politico, and she has the very latest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to ask you, first of all, with your reporting, was there any sense of shock? Was there more of a sense of, well, we kind of saw this coming when we initially heard the reports last night?
I don't know that anyone expected a missile launch necessarily, but the frequency of them certainly has picked up. We saw the president tweet about it, saying that it was disrespectful to the Chinese president. So that suggests that he could speak more with the Chinese about potentially working with them to get North Korea to tone down the rhetoric.
So on that note, from your reporting, what do you gather could take place next, especially because we're seeing, as you said, another attempt?
Right. I mean, I think we'll definitely see President Trump try to work more through the Chinese, through that channel, to try to stop these kind of tests. The USS Carl Vinson is also, it was scheduled to be there late this month, so if it's not already there, it's close. So U.S. military assets will be in the region if the administration decides to go with a military response. But I think right now we're sort of waiting to see what the administration will decide to do.
You've done extensive reporting. I sort of want to shift gears here because we talked a lot about it this week on former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and news developing from the fact that he had been paid to make speeches from a foreign entity, from a foreign government. So I want to sort of bring it back here, and I want to ask you, where was the disconnect? I had read that he had been warned in 2014, and I also think that it was a little bit along the lines of common sense, if I'm not mistaken. So where was the disconnect in all this? Absolutely.
We saw Representative Elijah Cummings release documents this week. We saw this 2014 letter that said you cannot do this. So he can't argue that he didn't know. It's not really clear right now what his thinking was in his doing this. Whether he, thought it was okay, or just kind of, because his lawyers have said that he briefed the Defense Department, but other documents that Representative Cummings released this week said that there's no paper trail, no evidence of that happening. So it's not clear kind of where his head was with all of this.
Okay, so it's not clear there, but I'm wondering if there's any clarity when it comes to the White House process of vetting. How could he have gotten around this? How could it have been missed? Any clarification as far as that?
Well, so the White House this week said that this was an Obama administration problem because he had been given a security clearance under the Obama administration. Absolutely. I mean, Democrats are definitely pushing back against that and saying that it was up to the Trump administration to do their own vetting, but they did not perform another background check. They relied on...
the Obama administration didn't vet him for National Security Advisor. I mean, we're talking about two different administrations, two different roles. Am I right?
Exactly. And Adam Schiff pointed out that the Obama administration had actually fired Mike Flynn. So there was, definitely some suggestion the Obama administration was unhappy with his performance and his background. And it was, Schiff said it was up to the Trump administration to conduct their own vetting to make sure he was up to the task.
So what have we learned from the White House, and what are you and other reporters trying to get from the White House? More documentation, more of the vetting process? Is that what you're working to learn right now, and have you learned anything?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the goal. Right now, there are still a lot of investigations going on, so people are pretty tight-lipped while those are, unfolding. The Defense Department Inspector General launched an investigation this week. Sean Spicer said that he believes that is the appropriate thing to do if they believe there was wrongdoing there. But right now, we're just sort of waiting to see where these investigations are going to go, and if there's going to be any punishment and any jail time as a result.
Yeah, that was my last question before I let you go, is what could be the punishment that he's facing?
I've seen reports that he could face up to 5 years in prison, but it's also interesting to note that as a former general officer, he's still subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So he could also face punishment under that for things like, conduct on becoming an officer or other sort of under the military code, as well as federal law.
Right. Well, it's a story that we continue to follow. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Interesting. Appreciate it.